Hello and welcome to Salt City Gamescast. This is episode 146. My name is Nick Naylor. Sitting across from me, Jared. Oh, welcome.
Yeah, that's my name, kind of.
Yep.
Hey, yeah, no, we're getting up there, man. 146. It's just crazy to me that we're still trucking.
Almost 150 episodes. They're at least an hour a pop. Most of them are 90 minutes. So you're looking at easily 220 something hours.
Yeah. Have fun listening to all of the previous episodes. Probably go crazy.
Got a little over a week straight. If you don't sleep, you just listen to our stupid ass opinions on this show.
Yeah, and opinions we have. If there's one thing that we do have in spades, is opinions. So
hey, I don't recall if we talked about this on the show. Did we have this on the show? I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
But it's kind of a special release. I remember having an amusing experience last year, but this is kind of a one-off thing. I think they only do it once a year, but it's this oak-aged dark lager. And they, like last year, they were like $25 or like a pop. I was like, holy shit, it's actually really good. But I remember when I checked out last year, the dude was like, honestly, in California, this would be $45 and it's worth it. And I'm just like, I don't know that. Okay, guy, you gonna ring me up and sell me the stuff, but it is very good. Like it is, it's not the type of beer I'm gonna go and have more than one of, but I enjoy it quite a bit, and the price came down. It was like $18.
Isn't it like really strong as well? Isn't it pretty high ABV?
I think I'm looking 8. I need glasses apparently. 8.3.
Oh, okay, so it's not that bad. No, I really like it. I mean, the bottle is beautiful as well. I don't know if the camera's really picking up the nuances of the bottle and the label, but it is a very nice product. It looks like swamp water, so it's a little concerning.
Probably the ugliest beer I've consumed. And
also lager, you're kind of stretching the definition, in my opinion. I'm sure that it all boils down to how it's brewed.
Sure.
But for me, it's like you're not getting a lot of lager notes here.
It also says triple Brett. I don't know what that means, so I don't know if that's part of the style too. Triple Brett Oak Aged Dark Lager, aged on Montmorency cherries. I don't know what kind of cherries those are either.
Montessori? Is it Montessori cherries?
No, I think that's a school. No,
okay,
no,
okay, fair enough.
Montmorency.
Okay. Doesn't Brett have something to do with like carbonation?
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
We're going to have to do some research and circle back on this thing.
Clearly, we don't know anything about this beer.
Listen, we're just doing our best to stay alive, because I don't know if you know about the climate in the Salt Lake Valley.
Oh, my God.
But it's not great. We live in this little bowl, so when in the winter, when we don't have frequent storms, we haven't had one for at least a week, I think, we kind of trap all the shit. And at times you're like, hey, this is pretty cool. It's kind of foggy, but in reality, it's killing you because it's pollution. And right now it's really bad. You can just stare at the sun. You can just go out there and look at it because you can barely see it. And until we get a storm, we're kind of screwed. And I don't know when that, I haven't looked, but.
Yeah, no, it's bad. I was at the airport yesterday coming back from a work trip, and it was the worst inversion that I've ever seen in my life. I was in the parking garage. I'm not joking about that. It was like, I thought there was a storm when we were landing. I was in the aisle this time, so I didn't have like easy access to a window, but I could just see as we were landing in the plane, like it looked like a blizzard, right?
Yeah.
And then I got out of the airport to go get my car, and I was just like, oh, this is just fucking inversion. And in the parking garage, there's like it's low, like dimly lit, and that inversion had rolled into the parking garage, and I, to be fair, forgot where I parked. So I was just like fucking like looking around, and I was like,
travel a lot. I can see how you would like get into the rhythm and forget to look.
Yeah, usually I can find like a pretty close spot, so it's not that bad, but this time it was like further away, and I was like, am I gonna have to pull out my flashlight to see in this goddamn place? Like, it was so bad. And then I finally found my car, and just driving home, it got better where I'm at. But the freeway right outside of the airport, fucking grim, man. And yeah, like, people that don't understand, they're like, look at the fog, and it's like, no, man, this is like poison clouds that you're breathing in. So we get which is crazy because China on average has like some of the worst air pollution in the world, and specifically Beijing is really, really bad. And we will consistently beat Beijing on a bad day for inversion. And I cannot imagine that yesterday Beijing was beating us.
No, it's not good. I like how they come out on like the news, the government officials, and they'll be like, "Hey, it's dangerous for sensitive individuals to be outside." I'm just like, one, yes, but also like, doesn't mean it's safe for non-sensitive. It looks unsafe, period. And like when I'm planning what I'm doing for the day, it's not a lot of outdoor activities. It's like, I'm not going to go and play at the park.
Right.
It's the risk. It's too high.
Yeah. We really feel it when we don't get snow. And so far it's been I'm like somewhat happy because I fucking hate the snow. Yep. But also, this is the consequence. You have a dry winter here; it gets really brutal. So, we just kind of have to roll with it. But like, I also love when they make announcements. They'll be like, "Do telework today, just like work from home." And I'm like, okay, that's reasonable for a lot of people. Like, I'm just gonna choose to work from home. Like, I'm a very
the FedEx drivers. Like, that sounds great. What do I do?
Yeah, I'm super fortunate where I can do that and do that, but like that's just not realistic for a lot of people in the state. And so it's just like, okay, thanks for the tip, bros.
I just don't like it because there are, there's a lot of factors that go into the pollution. And the only thing they ever say is like, well, if everyone would just drive a little less. And it's like, well, like, all right, let's have that conversation then. What else can we ask to do less of around here that maybe might help? But that's not really how it works.
Here's a thought. How about having a robust transportation system that doesn't require driving? I mean, we have the Front Runner, which like that is a nice addition to like our local transportation. But
you got to surround it by lines that link up to the Front Runner in more places.
Here's the thing, Nick. That's what I was going to bring up. Just in Chicago, the metro system there. While you might get stabbed on it, that is a problem that you have to worry about. Maybe stay strapped on the Metro. The amount of access that the Metro provides is fucking insane.
Yep.
And I know it's apples to oranges. We were talking about one of the largest, best cities in the country and Salt Lake City. So, much smaller, city, but like just the amount of access. And it's not, it's not just independent to the city either. Like anywhere in the Chicago, they call it the Chicagoland area, which is a silly name. There's metro access all the way out in the fucking burbs as well to get you into the city and out of the city. Like we had something that was a little bit more robust where there was just lines all over the place, like there is for, the Chicago area. We might have a little bit better chance, but like realistically, we've got like one line that just runs along, from north to south, and it's fine. But like, I would love to see the data showing like how many people are utilizing that on a regular basis.
For sure, it's kind of a bummer. Who knows? So anyway, we're just trying to stay alive. Next time we'll be here in masks. The fog, the inversion will have come inside the building.
Yeah, San Francisco names their fog because it's so common there.
Like
but
a
it's
hurricane.
Actually, well, yeah, kind of.
So Karen's here.
Yeah, his name is Carl, because fog is so common in San Francisco that like the weather service, it's like this cheeky fun thing that they'll do. Like Carl's coming, prepare for Carl tomorrow. And he's got his own social media and everything like that, which is fucking hilarious. People like take pictures of fog and like put googly eyes on it and like anthropomorphize it, which is funny to me. But what would our inversion be called?
I don't know, something dumb because it's Utah. So Nephites or something dumb.
Yeah. Carl is innocent and doesn't hurt anybody, but this shit's nefarious. So it needs to be like something, Lucifer or something like that.
Well, I think we've done it for the end of the year. Indiana Jones is either out or out in a couple of days. We were talking about that, so we're into coast mode. You can clean up all your stuff. And,
do you have a concrete list set up for Game of the Year? We're going to be recording Game of the Year shortly.
Yeah, I'll get it made. It should be pretty easy off of the last. This is what I have in the episodes. I was kind of mindful of that, so I will send that over to you, and we will figure out what the hell we're going to do with that.
Or we don't send it over to each other.
I just have to
And it's just fun. We do it on the fly, Nick.
Well, then it's true because you should remember your favorite games of the year.
I mean, I have my list already.
Okay, great. Okay,
so I got it locked and loaded. But I am a bit worried because early reviews of Indiana Jones are very good. I'm a big fan of Indiana Jones, and so I'm like, what happens if I probably can bang this thing out this week? Probably. I can't imagine it's like 60 hours to finish this thing. So like, do we just have Indiana Jones on the list being like, we haven't talked about this game, but I liked it. It was one of my favorite games of the year.
It's here. Spoilers. It's fantastic. So
yeah, I don't know how we handle that, but we'll see. I mean, obviously I'm wishing that Indiana Jones is very good because I like Indiana Jones quite a bit. So we shall see, Nick. But yeah, I've got it more or less lined up, I think. Maybe move some stuff around, but overall it's lined up.
I saw something really funny about Indiana Jones in that basically every character, it just says fascist above them all if they're a Nazi, and it's just like, that's a fascist, go punch it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
I wonder, this is not the first time that Machine Games has had Nazis, so I wonder why they didn't do that. And I mean, obviously the whole premise of the Wolfenstein games is killing Nazis, but
there was a controversy when the last one came out about things that they're just like, no, you don't talk to them, you got to shoot them. And people are like, whoa, hold on. It's like, yeah, that's what you got to do. Figure out.
That's not true because you talk to Nazis plenty in that game. So
that's for sure.
Before you shoot them.
Yeah. Well, eventually you get to it.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Ease.
Yeah.
Ease 10 Nordics.
Yeah. New East game for all of the big East fans in North America.
I played 8 on the PSP.
Okay.
And then I didn't save and I lost like 2 hours and I didn't go back.
That was Lacrimosa of Dana, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So East has been around for a really long time, since the 80s. I believe we definitely talked about...
Yeah. You've talked about another one before.
Yeah, we talked about Monstrum Nox like 2 years ago, which was a fantastic game where you were like a vampire, which was weird. But it's been around since the 80s, and it's obviously very popular in Japan, not as popular in the West. I think that it should be more popular here because it's really fucking good. I mean, there's so many games, so there are notable exceptions, but by and large, if you go and look at like the totality of the series, like Metacritic scores, they're all pretty high, right? So
like mid 80s or something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I really got into the series around Lacrimosa of Dana, which was 8. And that game really kind of grabbed me in significant ways, probably a little bit more than Monstrum Nox did. But the thing that's beautiful about Ease in general is continuity. So every single Ease game, excluding one, which is called Origins, which is the origin of the series, has one main character. His name is Adol Christen. And he's in every game. And he's kind of like a Simpson-like character where he's like perpetually stuck at the age of 16 or 17. He doesn't age. And every single game in the series is like a continuation of this overarching story but there isn't like a lot of connections between games. It's essentially just like Adol shows up to the party and then he goes on this like grand adventure in every single game.
I seem to remember in 8 he had amnesia, but I could be wrong on that. For some reason I thought that there was a memory thing about it, but
I think Dana has amnesia, which is like the other main character in Ease 8. But he might have amnesia too. Everybody gets amnesia.
It's a JRPG.
Yeah, fucking you get amnesia. He does not have amnesia in this game, so that's nice. Well, that's not completely true. There is like one like sub story where he's like going and visiting this person, and every single time he goes back to like the present time, he doesn't really remember his interactions with that person, but it's not like proper amnesia. But yeah, so that's a really cool thing that I really like a lot. Is it's just he's on this grand journey and he just gets into all these wacky fucking situations with his good pal Dogi. So it's Adol and Dogi are the only two characters that seem to jump from game to game. And so every game is like this contained story that just involves Adol. And it's really cool. And I really, really like that about it. Again, and it's also very nice for people that haven't played previous games, because you can just jump into any one of these Ys games, especially the modern ones, and it's a self-contained story. So like you don't need like a lot of backstory. It's nice to have backstory from previous games, but like it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And there is like with all nerdy, IPs that people, love, there is like a timeline that you can go and look up.
Sure.
But I can't see anything that connects the games.
It's pretty important that when you have that many, that those better borderline be standalone, or else you're really like, not everyone can do what Yakuza does. And even the ones we've played on Yakuza, like, yeah, there's characters, it's nice to more context, but they do a pretty good job of just saying like, you can just show them play.
Yeah. No, these are even better at it than like the Yakuza series. They're really, like I said, besides those two characters that I highlighted, there's really no carryover, so you're good to go. So yeah, this one they're still doing the dumb shit where there's like a delayed release. So this came out like 2 years ago in Japan, and we just got it this year. So kind of weird. I understand it because it's not like a massive IP over here. So, and it is a very text heavy game, so that's gonna take a long time to kind of translate all that stuff and localize it. So it is what it is, but now it's here. I will say that this game, the start of this game is maybe one of the craziest intros to a fucking video game that I played in a really long time. So I'm just going to tell you what happens because I could not believe it.
PS5? Where are you playing?
PS5, yeah, PS5. It's on the Switch, PC, pretty much everywhere. I don't think Xbox, but PC and Switch and the PS5. So the beginning of this game starts out with you and Doki on a boat, a ferry, traveling from one island to another, and a group of Nordic pirates just basically board the ship, right?
Okay.
And the leader of the pirates is this girl named Karja, and she is telling the captain of this ferry, like, you didn't pay the toll, like you're skimping out on the dues for using this waterway. And the ferryman's basically like, yeah, sorry, I didn't have the cash this month, like I'll get you next month. And instead of her being like, oh, let's like break his bones or like teach him a lesson, she just murders him. She straight up just murders him. And everyone on the boat is just watching this happen. And Adol, a hero's hero and master swordsman, you do fight her. And then she's like, you're pretty tough. Well, I'm going to kill this guy now. And just murders him. Just murders him in cold blood. And then like the game cuts to Doki and this doctor that you're with and Adol in a tavern just enjoying lunch. And they're like, Doki's like, man, that was pretty crazy. I don't know. I was not expecting that. And then Adol's like, yeah, man, fucking wild. That guy got murdered. That bread's really good though. And it's just like, they're not concerned at all with witnessing cold-blooded murder. So I was laughing so hard at the beginning of this game because I was just like, I can't believe that this is the direction that it took. Not to mention that the character that murders this person is the main character of this game that you are going to spend 50 hours with.
Perfect.
Which is pretty hilarious. And it's they never talk about it. There isn't like a quiet moment once you realize that Karja isn't just a cold-blooded murderer that is like, yeah, I had to do that because the ferryman was like ferrying slaves or something like that.
I got no sleep the previous night. That was a whole deal. I was in a bad way.
Yeah, you never talk about it. She just murders this like guy that didn't have the money to pay, and then it's just like, all right, well, you're an okay character. So I thought that was very funny.
You don't have a party in these games, right? Like
you do.
You
do have a party in previous Ys games, but not in this game. So every single game, like we highlighted, is just a self-contained story. But the thing that I like about it so much is there always is a hook with these games. So the combat and the exploration largely stays the same with some notable tweaks, but there's always like a gameplay hook, right? So in Lacrimosa of Dana, it was this like city building element where you were stranded on this island and then you had to like round up characters to help better this settlement that you were building. And as the game progressed, it got better and better. You had to defend it from monsters. It was a really good system, and it hooked me quite a bit. And then in Monster Nox, every character in your party, which there was like 6 or 7 characters, they all had very unique traversal abilities, and the gameplay was designed around those traversal abilities. So it was really pretty dynamic, and the game took place in this massive city. You didn't really go out. Sometimes you went outside of the city, but the city was basically the entire setting of the game from front to back. And it was all centered around like, oh, I've got to use this character, got to switch him in because he's got this ability that allows me to get up to this point, and et cetera, et cetera. Really compelling. With this one, they do away with the party, and at the beginning of this game, you're on this island, the island that the murder took place on, and just randomly these like ethereal handcuffs come out of nowhere and handcuff Adol and Karja, the woman that murdered the guy on the ferry, together, right? And because of that, they can't leave each other's side. And there's like a lot of funny shit with that because like they've got to sleep and things like that, but they can't be outside of a room together. So it really gets kind of weird because they are not able to do that. And there's some funny stuff around that. But what that means for gameplay is that you can switch between the 2 characters freely, and they have their individual skills and strengths and weaknesses. But also, if you hold down the R2 button, they combine together for like massive, duo attacks.
Simpson style. They're on each other's back.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Like really cool shit like that. And they start layering those abilities that you get as the game progresses. So the combat is really interesting in this game. At first, I was really disappointed because that's one of the highlights for the E series in the last little bit is, a pretty diverse, specifically with Monster Nox, like a very diverse cast of characters that all play differently and you can control them, whereas this one, they do away with that. So it's just two characters. So that's one of the big differences here, but it works. And it's actually really fucking good. Especially when you get deeper into it and you start unlocking some of these like tag team abilities. Some of it is just really cool. And there are certain abilities where, while it's a tandem ability, you control the characters individually. So one character is doing one thing, the other character is doing the other thing. And I think that they smartly don't make it complicated for you to control both the characters, and it feels seamless, but is very cool when you like pull off some really cool, sweet combos in combat. The combat is largely a dodge base / parry defense combat system, and you're rewarded for parrying or dodging. And there's a damage counter or multiplier, I should say, that goes up the more you parry accurately in this game. The more you build up this meter, the more damage you do, right? Which is really satisfying, and it works. It all works, and I really enjoyed it. The secondary hook with this thing that separates it from previous games is a whole ass fucking ship seafaring component.
Great.
Where you get a ship early on in the game, and you start, the whole map in this game is separated by, they're just islands in this like archipelago essentially. And you're in this place called Obelia Gulf. And so you are traveling from island to island as the story progresses. And as you are playing the game, you're recruiting party members or ship crew to man your ship, right? And there is like a pretty robust upgrade system with the ship, and
ship combat.
Oh yeah, lots of ship combat. Yeah, at the beginning of the game, the ship is maybe one of the worst things that I've ever experienced.
A nice canoe
for like traveling from place to place. It's slow as piss, and it just like. It's not very strong. There's certain instances where like there's kind of like a pseudo open world, open ocean setting, and you can go, pretty large distances without the game telling you like, hey, you can't go this far. There are some hard limits where it's like, you can't go here yet. And there are like legitimate story reasons. Like, for instance, early in the game, it's like, there's a current here that we can't get through because like you basically get the ship it's like in disrepair, and you just use it because there's this like cataclysmic event that happens on the island, the murder island, that you have to get away from. And so they're like, we don't know what to do. Like, let's just get in this fucking rinky dink, ship that's full of holes that might sink, because that's our only option. And then over time, you learn how to, make it better and upgrade it. The upgrade system here is fantastic. And while the ships suck shit at the beginning, by the end of the game, that ship is fucking awesome, man. It goes so fast, and it's not limited. They really just kind of do away with like any realistic aspect to it. So towards the end, I was shooting laser beams out of my ship, also shooting black holes into the ocean that then just suck in enemy ships and enemy combatants, gather them all up, and then I can just destroy them at will. Huh. So it gets really, really cool. But out the gate, I was just like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I'm looking at my fucking phone, like, how long have I been traveling?
Well, that's what I was gonna say, is how long does it take for that to turn the corner and to get to a point where you're like, okay, there's something here.
Not super long, maybe like a couple hours. Like it's not like
it's not a big deal then.
It's not like 30 fucking hours of the ship sucking, Once you get to the point where you can get past that current that I just described, it gets a lot better. And then also each individual like section of the ocean that you explore later in the game, there starts to be these like currents that you can utilize, and there's this it's called the mana cell. So your cell on your boat is infused with magic, Nick, and so
okay. Sounds great.
It is great. And once you get that, you can utilize these channels of air that are pretty easy to see. So, and you have charges of your mana boost, essentially. So, and there's a speedometer, which I think is hilarious. On it doesn't tell you like you're going 110 knots, but it's just like it shows you like the speed at which you're going, which I thought was very funny. But yeah, once you get into these channels, you have unlimited boost, so you can just fucking zoom across the ocean at high speeds. There are 3 different camera options, which I think is interesting. One of them is like right behind the back of Adol Arkarja when they are on the ship, and it limits your helm. Yes, exactly. But it limits your visibility so significantly that I don't know, unless you wanted to like do a photo mode, which I don't think there's a photo mode in this game. There might be. I don't know why you would ever use it, but then there's one that's like a little bit pulled back, and then there's one that's like significantly further back where you can see, for long distances around you. And that's the one that you use the entire game. But yeah, ship combat, while it's fairly simplistic, I think it works, and I think it's fun, and it's also like there are some situations where the game forces you to engage in ship combat. But a lot of it's completely optional. I mean, I did all of it because I'm crazy, but if you're not like the biggest fan of it, then you don't really have to engage with it too terribly much. And then also, like when you get to an island, there's fast travel, so you can just fast travel wherever you want to once you get to an environment.
But is that ship combat getting you other shit? Are you getting good swords from the ship combat? Like,
yeah, there are certain quests that will allow you to get like booty.
Well, in a way that you're not just upgrading a ship, you're getting stuff for the other side of the game.
Yeah. There are like points on the map in the ocean where you can steer your ship into, and then it will start like a battle, an ocean battle. And some of them are just like small cannon fodder ships that give you like resources for like, it'll give you money or resources for crafting materials and things like that. But then some of the points will have like these big ships that you can't sink, so you have to actually board them. And then there is like a component of like combat with Adol and Karja on the boat. And once you beat the enemies on the boat, then it will usually drop a treasure chest for you that provides, sweet items, things to upgrade your character's gear, etc. So really cool from that perspective. And, they're just following in the footsteps of the last couple of games where they're just got this really dynamic, unique hook on top of a tried and true battle system that's been present for a long period of time now.
Is the story any good in this thing?
It's really good.
Do you have sex with the murderer chick?
No, but there's like a lot of like sexual tension, I would say, because you can, like, again, you have to sleep with her, like, and there are parts in the game where she's just like, I really don't want to do this, and you're like, yeah, I don't want to do this either.
Like, shut up, murderer.
and then it gets a little bit more tense, but there's no like proper sex. She proposes marriage to you because she's like, her background is she's a Viking, so this is like heavily influenced by Nordic mythology and things like that. So lots of things that you would see in like the last two God of War games is here. So it really follows that heavily, right? But the story is pretty solid, man. Like I was mostly engaged with it. There is like a couple of parts in it where I was just like, this is the silliest shit ever. Specifically with the handcuffs, there is like an explanation, and I won't spoil it, but it is hilarious. The explanation of what the handcuffs are. It made me laugh out loud for quite a while.
Come on.
Well, it's not necessarily that it's a unique idea, but like when you wrap your mind around what they actually are, you're like, this is so fucking funny. But the story goes places. It's pretty compelling. I mean, it's not like, this is the best story I've ever played in a video game, but it definitely is good and serviceable. And there's a lot of dialogue in here. There's also like pseudo dialogue options that Adel has, which doesn't really affect the overarching story that I could tell. Like there's not choices that you're actively making. But it is nice to have like a little bit of like, at least the perception of choice with some of the dialogue options here.
Voice acting in this thing?
There is, and some of it is absolutely atrocious. Adol in particular, the guy that did the voice for him this game, I don't remember his voice being as annoying in previous games. Some nerd's going to be like, oh, it's actually the same fucking person. But his voice in particular here is like nails on the chalkboard to me, dude. It drives me insane. Thankfully, a lot of Adol's stuff it's very limited. There's not a lot of like voice dialogue from Adol. But then there's a lot of characters that are voiced in this game. So it's like probably 50-50, whether it's just text-based or it's voiced. But it's pretty good, man. Like this thing is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I finished it and had a great time. There's really not a lot of negatives that I can highlight. The other new thing here is there's like a skill system, skill tree that is kind of interesting. It functions very similarly to something that you would see in like Final Fantasy like 10, for instance, where there are like nodes, and you get these gems that you're slotting into nodes. But the nice thing is, if you're really into build crafting, there is a lot of flexibility and freedom here to kind of craft a character and really affect their stats in a meaningful way. So if you're really into that kind of thing, it's here, and it's really robust and really, really deep. So that's there. And I got to the point where the game is kind of hard.
I was just gonna ask, is it hard? How is this game fall?
Yeah, like I played on the not the normal difficulty, but one step up. And
why'd you do that? Had you heard that you needed to?
No, because just previous games have been kind of easy.
I was gonna say, because you usually run with the normal.
Yeah, I don't usually mess around with it unless somebody tells me. But I've had, I played a good amount of these games now, and I was like, I want to kick it up a little bit. And I was getting my ass kicked like at the beginning. But once you start unlocking some of those tag team abilities, and you have a little bit more agency on your specific builds, by the end of it, I was just fucking demolishing shit. So really satisfying from that perspective. Lots of boss fights in this game. Lots of baddies that are kind of cool. The main baddies are the Trident. There are three main antagonists here. One thing that I will say, like just some of the negatives, is that this game does which it seems like it's a very common thing with video games in general nowadays, especially games that I played this year. Dragon Age does this a lot, which I really didn't like. But it's like, all right, I'm gonna fight this guy, and then I'm going to fight him like 6 more times in the story.
Nice.
And it's just like, all right, I guess, but like I'm okay with 1 or 2, 3 maybe, but it's like I fought you, and there are differences. It's not the same fight. They're like getting more anime as like I'm a dragon now or whatever. But also it's just like I don't know, less of the same characters here, and the way it's particularly annoying here because like you'll kick one of these enemies' asses, and the story is like driving home the fact that these like if we get rid of these guys, one of them sets a curse on Adel, and it's like this serpent's curse, and he gets this like snake around his neck, and the character tells him, you have 3 months to either kill me or you will die, right? And then you fight the guy like 5 times, and he's like down on the ground, and he's like injured, and he's like, I didn't understand how powerful you were. And then something will happen, and to the game's credit, it gives you the option to be like, let's go and get him. But then Karja's like, let's finish him off. And Karja's like, we don't have time for that. And I'm like, it seems like we're going to die if we don't do this. Like, this seems like this should take priority here. I don't know.
Did she get the curse too? Or
No.
only? Well, that would be fantastic, right? Because if the main character died, she would just have to drag the Weekend at Bernie's style dead body around forever. Like there's a huge incentive for her to be on board with killing this guy,
flopping
too.
around the fucking ethereal
I don't know how to
handcuffs.
get this off. It's a whole deal.
But it's just like I've seen a lot of this in games lately, and it's just like, come on, man. Like I think that it dilutes the severity of these like main big baddies when it's like, I'm going to fight you 8 times in this game. And then on the last one, you're going to finally die. And it's like, I've been kicking your ass for fucking like 30 hours now. Like, why are you still here? So that's a little frustrating. And then the only other negative that I would highlight is this game tries to do a lot of things. And a lot of these games try, like a lot of these Ys games try a lot of things. And thankfully, like the core, the things that I've already highlighted, that's all really good and executed at a very high level. But there is other things in this game. You get a surfboard in this game, and that is absolute dog shit.
There's a beach?
Well, it's a surfboard that it's like a hoverboard more or less. And you have to use it for certain like traversal elements of the game. It just feels bad. It doesn't control well. If you hit a wall with it, it immediately disappears. And that could be problematic because the game requires you to like traverse water a lot in this game. And like, it's kind of like squirrely. So if you hit a wall, you just fall into the water, and then you have to like start back from like the last point you were on land, which is annoying to me. And then there's a grappling hook in the game. And oh my God, is it fucking, it is the worst part of this game. Every single time I had to use the grappling hook, I wanted to pull my fucking hair out because it just, the engine that this game is running in is just not up to snuff. It seems like the game runs really well, but it just seems like they weren't able to nail the feel that you need to have with a grappling hook, right?
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of point of frustration where I'm like grappling, and then I'd fall in a hole, and it's just like, okay, I gotta do this again. It's just not fun, and it just kind of sucks, honestly. It's all based around momentum, and that's the frustrating thing, where it's like, this has been done since fucking Pitball back on the Atari. But like, you grapple, and then you're gonna have this like momentum where you go back and forth, and you have to time your jump to get to the next place. Sometimes that works perfectly, and you're like, all right, I'm going from point to point, and it's great. And then other times, fucking the grappling hook is just like, we're not going to follow the laws of physics right now. Instead of going back and forth, you just stop and hang there. So like, if you're in a sequence of like jumping from point to point, you would think that you're, momentum's carrying me, and then it's just like, oh no, I'm just going to fall now because it didn't do it for whatever reason on this point. So that sucks quite a bit, and I really hated it, but thankfully that's like pretty minimal criticism. So yeah, really the only 3 things I can highlight is hoverboarding, fucking grappling hooking, and the fucking voice acting being a little uneven, I would say.
How's this thing look?
I mean, it's not a looker by any means.
It's like I don't know if B tier is the right word, right? But there's a certain level of JRPGs that are like, you just know as soon as you look at them, you're just like, yeah, the budget's X amount less from the heavy hitters.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always kind of thrown this one in before I used, Tales would kind of be in that category in the past as well.
Well, ironically, Falcom is the developer of East series and the Trails series. So there you go. So yeah, it looks very similar. I think they're probably using similar engines there.
Sure.
I mean, it's obviously not a super robust engine, whatever it is, because it's on the Switch. So
they make these pretty quick. I mean,
yeah,
it was only a couple of years ago that you talked about it, and
yeah, they've got, like I said, they've got a huge following in Japan. People love them, and I think that this series deserves more love in the West. I think if people really gave it a shot, I think that they would really enjoy these things. I'm a huge fan of this series, and this one is no different. It is fantastic. They have made 3 bangers in a row now, and so it's like one of the beauties of this is like if you have a Steam Deck or something like that, go find. I'm sure that Steam's going to do like a bundle at some point in time for these recent East games.
Like $40.
Get them for $40, and you've got a couple hundred hours of really solid, and all the stories in the last 3 have been really good. So yeah, it's a pretty fantastic series, and I'm very high on this game. I really like it quite a bit. Here's a little aside though. As I was doing research for just reading up, and there's an East game coming out in a couple of months, but it's like a port of an older game.
Okay.
So, but I always buy them, and then I usually on the older ones. There's been like a couple that they ported to like PS4 and Steam, like updated, not remakes, but just like re-upped games. And they don't grab me as much as these last 3 mainline games. But I was looking at a list of like all of the East games, and there's a fuckload of them. But they made a fucking Trails in the Sky East fucking fighting game.
What?
Yeah. There's a fighting game that incorporates Trails characters and East characters that unfortunately never came out in the United States.
That's a bummer.
It was also on the Vita, so that's also a bummer. But
there's a lot of reasons to be bummed for me on Trails in the Sky. So I finished that one this year or last year, and then they announced that they have a 3D remake coming out, I think next year, and I'm like, fuck. I don't want to like I haven't played the next one in that one, but now I'm sitting here, I'm like, well, now I for sure won't play the next one because are they going to remake the next one too? Yeah. So I almost am just going to sit on my hands for the Sky series.
I just have a stack of Trails games now, like it's probably this high. I'm not joking, and I've played Trails in the Sky 1 or not Trails in the Sky, Cold Steel 1 and 2. Those are the only games that I played, and they just keep on releasing them. And I'm like, I love these ones. And there was one that came out this year that people really liked.
One a year is not even fast enough to keep up. Right. Like it's usually more frequent than that.
Because they're like 100+ hour experiences. So yeah, but I would really like. I didn't go and look up video, but I would really like to maybe get an emulator or watch a video of this Trails / East fighting game. Because there's just so many characters in both of them that like you could potentially have a really badass like Marvel versus Capcom like tag system fighter, and it could be cool. So
yeah, even if it's Sky, it's different. Sky is a different style of game from like Cold Steel. Cold Steel would actually have a bigger cast, but Sky still has a good 7.
As far as I understand, it's characters from all Trails, like all the Trails.
It's not just it's the whole world.
It's all of the characters.
There's 1,000.
Yeah,
so
and in East is fucking 30+ year old IP. So yeah, there's lots of characters from the past there too.
There's a redhead guy from the 90s and the redhead guy from the 2000s,
and he's just is 16 forever. That's another thing that's hilarious about this is all of the crew members. There are some like older crew members, but like that's even funnier because you rescue. They get turned into these things called Griegers, and then you got to go and like rescue them. And then Karja and Adol will like dispel the curse that are on them, and they turn back into their human form. And then a lot of them join the crew, right? And a lot of them are teenagers.
A bunch of kids around this boat.
Yeah. But then there's like 5 or 6 adults, and all the adults are like, yeah, we'll just listen to in this giant like ship that they're controlling. Like we'll just let them handle it, and like, we won't, intervene. And I just thought that was hilarious.
Let's get it together, people.
Yeah.
All right, cool, dude. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about 9 Souls. Talk about Marvel Rivals, Overwatch. All right, we are back.
We've returned.
I made a mistake when I was in Wyoming. I should have bought. I was at the liquor stores. I got a bottle of Weller, but they had a LeBron James Hennessy.
LeBron James.
And I've just been thinking about it, and I was just like, I should have fucking bought that so we could have had LeBron James Hennessy on the. It was like 60 or 70, but it wasn't a.
What was he like on the label?
Yeah,
just like
basically. I was.
It's the way LeBron likes to get fucked up.
Like, I should have got it, but
I mean, the Hennessy that you have is really good.
Yeah, I know. So I've been wanting another bottle. I don't know that the King James version is the one.
Yeah,
but I'm sure it's serviceable. I'm just assuming most of those things that the celebrities put their name on are just serviceable products. And
there's a cognac at the liquor store close to my house that's in their case. It's like $200. I can't remember the name of it, but I was like, I would drink that.
If I ever become like a super millionaire, maybe I might need even more, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make sure that I get my own
Louis
whiskey, and I make sure it's fucking everywhere, and it's just like Nick Naylor's whiskey, and it's just got a picture of me with no explanation, and everyone's just like, it's fucking everywhere. Who is this guy? What is?
I saw your post. Yeah, I think you were like training your dogs with these little like sound buttons.
Yeah.
And it seems like I'm going out on a limb here, and it's like you can record your own voice onto them. And I think your wife had like made one that was like potty and treat, and then you took one and put it next to your liquor cabinet and just pressed it, and it just was you saying whiskey, which was pretty funny, Nick.
Yeah, it's
sometimes you're pretty good, man.
It's just every time I go, every few minutes on the weekends when I go over to the cabinet, it's like whiskey, whiskey. Bloody Mary. I'll just get like 12 of them and line them all up. And you gotta.
Is that working, by the way, for your dogs? Not for you. Obviously, it's working for you.
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, Nala will never figure it out.
Yeah.
We've given her like puzzles for, like food puzzles that people get. Mm-hmm. And she just gives up and lays down next to it.
Yeah.
But now I'm surprised that Dave hasn't, because he is smart and very vocal, and he tells you what he needs, but he is not really attached the push this button. The potty thing would be nice, because if you're in like a different room, you just hear it, because he'll just go sit by the door, or at least Nala will. That motherfucker Dave, he will come get you. Mm-hmm. He comes into the room and just starts growling and charges you. He's like, God damn, okay, fine, let's go, you freaking weirdo.
My dog Penny, she really likes the like. We have when we leave or go somewhere, we'll give her like a little treat ball. It's like one of those balls that they can roll around. And
they like fall out.
Yeah, that falls out. She loves those things, like absolutely. So we had to get her like a new one that's like more complex, and you put food on each side of it, and then you've got to move it in different ways to get the treats to come out. But it is the most effective thing that we can give her. The only problem is that once the treats are dispelled and there's no more treats, she doesn't realize. So there'll be times where she'll just be around our house, just like rolling it over and over and over again. And it's just like, there's no more. This is not a magical device that they just appear if you keep on rolling it. So it's like kind of annoying, but yeah.
We have a green thing that like you unscrew, and then inside you put this frozen little peanut butter thing, and then they can just like lick it.
Yeah, we got that
pretty well.
We got that too. Maybe on your wife's recommendation, but my dogs don't like it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know why, but they're not into it.
I don't know. Okay, so I was on Blue Sky, which is a new Twitter knockoff that has kind of gotten some attention.
Liberal Twitter,
basically. Yeah. And essentially, Twitter died for me because all the people I follow just fucking bounced.
Right.
I'm like, well, there's nothing here. And then a decent chunk of those people have now started up on Blue Sky. So I'm like, all right, there's kind of something here. And it's super slow, so it's really easy for me to stay on top of the feed, because not very many people are doing much. But Patrick Klepek posted, and he was like, what indie game should I play? And then someone was like, 9 Souls. And I was like, I don't know what that is. And he responded, and he said, already on my list for Game of the Year. And I said, okay. Well, generally, I usually like or at least respect a lot of what Klepek's opinions are. So I grabbed it, played it, and picked it up on the Steam Deck. What this thing is it Metroidvania? I guess it's kind of.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of. It is. Sorry, I just think about like I guess you do get access to some areas as you get other abilities and stuff like that. It probably checks that box.
Mm-hmm.
This is
much more linear, at least with what I played of it. And I did a lot of reading on this thing in the last couple of days, and it seems like a lot of people said that it's like throughout much more linear than like other Metroidvanias.
Yeah, like generally you need to be going in a very, there's not a lot of branching paths.
Mm-hmm.
There is a spot at the end where you have a couple different baddies you need to take care of, and you can do that a little out of order if you
Mega
want.
Man style.
Yeah, but I think generally the game looks really good. The art style I'm pretty into. It's not that far off of when we talked about, what was it,
Path of the
Teal Lotus. But I like this more, and I like the characters in this more. I like all the characters in it quite a bit, and I played the shit out of this game, and I'm extremely high on this thing. But I didn't know what I was getting myself into, like, at all. I was like, let's just play it. And real quick, it is is the word a Sekiro like, I guess. It has a parry system, and it's a parry system that you have you have to engage with it in order to find success in this game, just like a Sekiro. And
people are calling it a Soulsvania, and then I saw people being like, "What the fuck is a Soulsvania? Stop making up words."
I agree. I don't think we should call it a Soulsvania. I guess it's a Souls.
Well, there is a number of Souls like Metroid style games, like Salt and Sanctuary.
You ever played that? I never played it.
Yeah, I didn't really like it very much. People love that shit though. And then Blasphemy or whatever. That's also kind of like Souls like in its execution. That one's really good. I like that one.
So I started the game, didn't really know what to expect immediately. I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of interesting. We'll see where this goes. And then, you know, if you look at the art style and you just like where the game's coming, and you're kind of expecting I don't know what the culture they're drawing from.
Chinese
culture.
Yeah, this game is developed by a Taiwanese studio.
Red Candle. But I'm kind of expecting a certain aesthetic, and then real quick, you go, you're up on the surface, then you go down below, and it's there's a lot of technology here, and it was kind of shocking. I liked it quite a bit. I was like, hey, cool, this thing is doing something different, and this isn't just going to look a whole lot like that bow game that we played.
Super cool. Like right at the beginning of the game, I was just like, holy fuck, like this is so cool.
I really respect just the whole decision, and the story is, there's something here, which is not really what I always expect out of some of these things.
There's a lot of dialogue, a lot more dialogue than I was expecting.
It really goes some places, and overall, like the heart of this story thing is that you're this Solarian race that's on a planet, and they basically get a sickness that's gonna kill them all, and so they all start and try to fix it, and then they end up leaving, and they have this grand plan that ends up not working, and a lot of problems ensue. And basically all the people that are like these 9 Solarians that were in charge of this program, you're essentially going to go fuck them all up, most of them. And that's pretty much the crutch of the game, is going from point to point like you would in Metroidvania, working through it. Where what we've got to get into is, you know, the combat. I want to know how far you got. I know you have mixed opinions on this thing, at least how you feel about it. Which boss, like how far have you gotten?
Second soul.
Okay.
Did
you get through Kwafu was your friend. So you got through him.
Yeah.
And then,
which also is incredible because he's like this little fat bear with like a boba drink on his chest, and it's hilarious.
It's a really good reveal because he's talking to you through the intercom, and you're like, "Oh, I'm going into a boss fight," and then he's like shadowed, and then he shows up, and he's just the cutest motherfucker you've ever seen. You're just like, okay, but he ends up being your buddy. Is Juming or something? The chick? Have you fought her?
That's the one. Yeah.
Okay, so you got through her.
No, I didn't finish.
Got her.
Yeah.
Okay. So
to where I was like, I can't do any more of this.
got it. And let's walk through kind of what is driving you crazy on the combat on this, because I'm surprised that that's where you got frustrated.
Yeah, so this is very parry heavy, and one of the mechanics here is there are, in a lot of these games you can do like a regular parry, which is the baseline, and then there's perfect parry. And the thing that I really, really hate about this and like fundamentally broke the game for me is if you do not perfect parry, you take chip damage essentially. And the one thing of the chip damage was like very small and minimal, but in particular, the first soul boss that I did, I hadn't really like put 2 and 2 together that like that's what was happening. But you lose health every single time you do a normal parry, and you only preserve your health if you do a perfect parry.
Yeah, there is no block. It's just a parry.
Right. And I hate that. I absolutely hate it. I think that it's horrible, and it drove me fucking insane, where I got to a point where I was just like, this just feels cheap and not fair. And, in that first boss fight in particular, I was like, I died a few times, but then I was like picking up his pattern like you do in these games. And so I was parrying everything. Parry, 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 parry. Wait for your opportunity to do damage. Another thing that I really don't like is there's like this system that allows you to drop a seal on an enemy, and it really incentivizes you to use that.
The talisman.
It's a talisman, yeah. And it's too slow, and it just like it didn't immediately feel good to me to use it, because it's like you hit it's mapped to the shoulder button, so you hit it once and then you have to hold it, and then they like zip through, and I hate the way that it's implemented. I really don't like it, and so that was like lesser of a concern to me. I could have got over that, but I cannot get over the fact that like I'm doing what the game is telling me to do and what the game wants me to do, albeit at a lesser degree. So I just came to the realization that it's just like, okay, well, so you just want me to perfect parry everything. So that really, really pissed me off, because I was like, it just doesn't feel rewarding. It feels like the game is like stealing from you, and it's like, I'm parrying, I'm not getting hit, and I'm still losing a lot of life. So there were times like, once I started getting the powders down with this first boss, where I would like parry, 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 and then look up, and I'd be like one shot from death. And I'm like, I haven't gotten hit, so why am I almost dead? And so like, it just broke my brain in a way that I really haven't experienced in a game in a really long time. And I've never really had this like hard shifts, because I was generally enjoying it up to the point that I came to that realization where I was just like, so you're just stealing health from me, even though I'm doing what you want me to do, but you just want me to be like a fucking edgelord and perfect parry everything. So realistically, the game is saying, yeah, like perfect parry everything, you shouldn't parry. But then it's like, well, why is the parry here if it takes health from me? I don't understand. It makes no sense to me. And then I was just like spiraling, where I was just like, okay, well, I got to go read as much as I possibly can about this mechanic, because surely there is something that negates this. And, texting you, you told me that there was, and then I looked in the tree, the skill tree, and there is. And so the way that works is you gain health if you do damage to enemies. So you'll gain back your chip damage from not perfect parrying. But that's not standard. So then it's just like, okay, well, so the game just wants you to perfect parry. So I'm just like, well, why is a regular parry here if all you can do, if you want to find success, is just perfect parry? I even went down as far to find out the amount of frames that you have for a parry. And so 8 frames is the basic parry, the timing that you have, which is pretty liberal. Like, that's not bad. That's pretty, like, that's doable. It's manageable. It's cut in half for the perfect parry, which is much more difficult. And so I was just like, this is the most like sweaty edgelord bullshit that I've ever encountered. And I just could not get over it. Like, it hurt my brain so much. It just feels cheap. It just feels like, I don't know. It just feels unfair to me in a way that I just did not expect this thing to do. I'm okay with challenge. I want to be challenged. I enjoy these games, but with something like this, man, I just feel like it's a really poor way to do it. And then again, like I was thinking of all the ways that you can, because like I understand the reason behind it. It's like this is going to like incentivize you to become perfect at this game, and then also make you satisfied when you get a perfect parry off. Oh, I didn't lose health this time. That's bullshit. Like there are ways that you can implement a perfect parry to a regular parry system and not immediately remove health from your health pool. Just feels unfair. And the community is like horribly toxic, like in a way that I was not expecting. You find like a lot
where,
like Reddit and things like that.
Reddit people are over the moon for this fucking thing.
There's like, plenty of people that don't like this thing that are on the same page as me, and so and again, and it's like, look, you're gonna find a lot of toxicity with like any of these like ultra challenging like Souls likes, things like that. That's not anything new, but the amount of people that were complaining in threads that I was reading where they were like, this just doesn't feel, it's not tight enough for one, and then for two, like it just feels unfair that you're just taking health away from me, and people being like, well, you just gotta get good. Like, so it is in like artificially creating this like gatekeeping that I think is not what you want to do for your video game. Like it just, I think it's a bad way to do it. And so I just couldn't get over it.
It's still internal damage though, right? We need to, right? If you, unless you miss the parry, like if you're late, you're going to take straight damage.
Mm-hmm.
But if you
it's chip damage, like a fighting game, like a lot of fighting games implement a system where if you block,
that's not this. No, this isn't the same.
It is.
Chip damage is real damage. Internal damage is not chip damage.
No, it is the same. Hold on. Let me talk here for a second. Chip damage, it depends on the systems. There's many different systems. But for instance, like Street Fighter 6, chip damage, if you do not take additional damage, that health will refill. So yes, it is chip damage. It just depends on the game that you're playing. So that's why I compared it to chip damage. Sure. It's not one for one, but yeah, like it essentially functions like chip damage in a lot of fighting games. The problem is you're fighting a human being, so it makes sense to have chip damage in a game like that because it dissuades people from being overly turtley or defensive. When you're fighting an AI, curated enemy and you're taking chip damage, it's just bullshit.
So I mean, you take internal damage that you can regain. It will recover if you don't take additional damage.
Yeah.
Or if you keep parrying. Even if you keep wrong parrying, it will keep coming up.
True.
Now, what I do not recall is when certain things come back. Because I'm at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I've finished the game. I have one phase of the last boss for the ultimate ending that I've been working on for around 3 to 4 hours. Mm-hmm. Haven't finished it yet. I think it's a S+ tiered boss fight, one of the best I've really played. I absolutely love it. But I'm a little worried about that. I don't recall when I got certain abilities, but when I perfect parry, I regain my internal damage, which is like, so on this fight that I've now memorized on the last boss. Yeah, I will. If I miss one, like she stabs me, I miss it, and then I do 2 perfect parries, I'm back up to full speed.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't lose any health, 0. Yeah. And then again, you have attachments that all these like Hollow Knights, they all have them where you're picking what types of jades you're putting on. They all take a certain amount of resources, and there are ones you can use that will, when you attack, bring back that damage. So I'm really on the opposite side of this, complete opposite side, but I think it's more of where I first felt a skill check in the game compared to where you found your skill check in the game, because I didn't I pretty much cruised through this game until I got to Lady Ethereal, which is about halfway through the game. So by the time I got to a point where I had a hard time, I had opened up a lot more than where you're at in the game. So it's hard for me to speak to your frustration because I just didn't have it. Like I did not have that frustration where I didn't have the stuff.
Yeah, I wasn't like dying over and over again, and that wasn't my frustration. Like the first boss that I fought, like I died a few times, but it wasn't like anything like crazy. There's 2 phases of that boss fight, which it's like, okay, for the like first major boss, you got 2 phases. It's kind of garbage, but
most have 2 phases.
Yeah. But I wasn't like I wasn't like banging my head against the wall dying. I was just like, that's when I came to the realization that this is the way that it worked. And I was just like, fundamentally, it broke my brain. It wasn't like, oh, I just can't get past this. It was just like, I fundamentally do not like the way that this is implemented. I do not think that it's good in the way that it's implemented. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I'm not going to waste fucking 30 hours of my life banging my head against the wall when like the difficulty is presumably going to ramp up from here. And if I have to start back and forth with my parries and then also manage my health, that like I'm losing, even though I'm doing what the game wants me to do, I just like, no, fuck you. I'm not doing it. And so that's where it lost me. And I just like, to your point, like, even if you could recover the health, I don't think it's a good system. I don't want to.
It's a flow of having a boss fight in a way that
I want to be rewarded if you don't parrying. So like, I don't want to have to perfect parry.
It's way too fucking easy to do that parry. It's way too easy to hit that window where you take internal. So if that was the game, you would have to adjust it because it's way too easy to turn your damage into internal.
I agree. But they should have adjusted. They should have done something different.
That's not the flow. That's not the flow of how this is made, where you literally, you can play the game, you can not perfect parry, and you can recover this stuff within the confines of the system that's sitting there.
Yeah, but not quickly. Like, that was the thing. Well, like, maybe later in the game you can do it quickly. But the thing about it is also, that was another thing that I saw. Like, people were complaining about this, and then people were like, just don't get hit for 10 seconds. And I'm like, 10 fucking seconds? Like, I don't want to dance around and be constantly worried about my health.
That's silly.
And not do damage to an enemy, or like just be constantly worried about my health. Like, it's fine that this is the way that it is, and it's okay. Like, I'm not saying that, I'm glad that you like this thing. I just don't think it's very good. I don't think it's well implemented. And so, different strokes for different folks. This is just not for me.
Unbelievable. We need a new host on this show.
Hey, man.
Unfucking believable. Just so you know, there are different ways to use combat with the talisman. So I absolutely agree that delay is tough. And there's one that gets rid of it completely.
Why can't I just parry? Like, why is that not acceptable?
You're not doing it right.
No.
What are you talking about? You can't.
I am doing it right. I'm parrying. What do you mean? Why is there
not within the window that takes no damage?
Right. Well, why is there a difference between perfect parrying and parrying? Like, that hurts my brain. I don't understand.
What do you mean? Sekiro had that.
Yeah, but the way that Sekiro implemented it was, if I perfect parry, I'm going to do much more stagger. I'm going to be in a much better position. And that's satisfying.
It still had a flow, and it still punished you for not perfect parrying. Sekiro still punished you for not perfect parrying.
But it didn't take your fucking health away from you.
No, it took it added way more stagger onto your build, whether you're going to get fucked up. Like, it's not all that different.
I think that it's fundamental, like completely different, because you have, like, again, like, there were times in this game where I was like down to a pixel of health because I was just parrying and not perfect parrying. In Sekiro, you at least have the ability, and I guess you could say you have the ability here, but it's just like, get good, motherfucker. Like, don't get hit for 10 seconds, or perfect parry over and over again. Like, it's just garbage,
You gotta
dude.
stop quoting the random dude that said don't get hit for 10 seconds. That's a stupid argument. And it's not valid. It's not. I was never in a boss fight. I was like, oh, I'm just going to run and not play the game in order to try to recover my health. That was just not a thing.
It's just this game.
There are enough jades and in the skill tree that opens up that I seriously do not think that this is perhaps it is a valid criticism within the confines of where you're at in the game. I don't have that criticism, but I don't see how that holds up as you play through this game, and I don't think it holds up for even very long. Like,
well, that's fair.
I just don't think that it is a thing.
This thing was like eating something that you absolutely like hate eating for me. Like, there was just this visceral feeling inside of me that was like, I'm not going to subject myself to this. Even if it gets better and it's the best fucking thing in the world after this initial point where you get a little bit more flexibility when it comes to health regeneration outside of the parries, I just fundamentally do not like the way that this is implemented. It just feels cheap and unfair.
I feel like I have to restart the game to go in and try to understand where you're coming from on this, because I just
why you don't need to.
Because I'm perplexed and I'm mad because this game is like a 9 out of 10 for me. I fucking love it. And
That's good.
And I think some of the boss fights are the best in this type of game. Like if you're going to make a list of the top 5 from like Sekiro, Lies of P is one of my favorites, and this one, like it's going to have one of the bosses is going to be in the top 5 if I'm going to make a list. Like
that's great.
Just in this game.
I hope that you're not going as far as comparing this to Sekiro, because that is
no, but I think some of the boss fights are.
This is not nearly as tight as Sekiro.
This is a 2D game.
It's different as well.
It's not as tight. It's easier to do a perfect parry in this game than it is in Sekiro. It's easier to do
That's great.
the perfect parry on it. But some of the talismans, you do get to change that out. There's a water talisman that essentially you don't have to hold anything anymore. It will just have a delay. So you hit them with the talisman and it will go off a few seconds later.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty good. I used that for pretty much the whole game because I didn't like the holding until I got to the final boss. And the final boss, there's a really good strategy. There's not a lot of windows to attack. Like it is a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
And you end up being able to do like a 5 talisman bomb. Every time you parry, you get 1 mana or whatever we're going to call that. And if you get up to 5 and then hit them with it and hold it, it's just a huge explosion, does a ton of damage. Mm-hmm. And there's just a window of when you can do it on this boss, and you just have to memorize the fight. And at this point, it's like that final boss is a 3-phase fight, and I have the first 2 down, which was not a good, not an easy time, but it felt very rewarding. Like when I think back of when I first started fighting this boss and how she fucked me up, and I was like, this is impossible. Like this is so fucking hard. I don't understand it. And then when I fast forward now, where I'm just like, oh, I will probably only have to heal once through phase 1, maybe once in phase 2, because I have just figured out. It really feels fucking good when you have that down. And I'm now working on the last phase, which it just keeps getting fucking crazier and crazier. And you're just like, Jesus Christ. But really, really happy about probably three boss fights. I mean, there's a lot of boss fights that I enjoy, but there's probably 3 boss fights in this game that I'm just like, these are really fun, interesting mechanics. Like it's pretty like the skill, like the what the bosses are throwing at you is kind of a good time, and you can get a pretty good flow. There is one boss that's the stuff of nightmares, and that's it's not like the hardest boss, but it's hard to get the flow on that one.
I think that was like a big criticism that I had in the time that I played this game too, was like flow state is important in these types of games. Like we've talked about in the past, like these parry centric games are very much like a rhythm game in a lot of ways.
Yep.
And I could not find a flow state in this game because I was like, my eyes were just like darting up and down from like my health to the center of the screen to like kind of figure out what's going on. It just didn't work for me.
I should record like 45 seconds of this last boss I'm on, because it's pretty good to watch because you can see how it can be done on like the hardest boss in the game. And one of the harder bosses I've fought in these types of games, just period. It is a motherfucker. And the story, like we mentioned, is the end of it. It's all really good. I'm kind of interested to see what happens with this ultimate ending. I've already, like, the way it works is, if you just get the normal ending, you just kill her Igon in 2 phases. And then the ultimate ending is you make a decision, and then it's a 3-phase boss fight. And I just haven't gotten to that. Do you have the bow yet?
No.
Oh. I'm still going to strongly say that you should make progress, and I know that you're not going to, but you should. And
I uninstalled it.
I think you're making a mistake. I think you're making a mistake.
I don't think I am. For me, like I'm happy that you like this game, but I think that again, this mechanic in itself is a deal breaker for me. I will not go back to this game. I don't care if you put it on your game of the year list as number 1, I'm not going back. Usually I would respect your opinion and be like, I got to listen to Nick and give this a go. But this thing is not for me. And then it made me start thinking like, well, how many games with like parry centric mechanics do I really like? And then I was like, Sekiro.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's any others. So maybe it's just that I don't like parry heavy games. I mean, Sekiro is the best ever at doing it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that thing's just fucking incredible in the way that it's executed. And it's so satisfying when you can nail these long, stretches of defensive, combat, and then, get in a good, strong attack. I just don't know if there are many. So like,
I would be interested in Lies of P.
Yeah.
And I know that's,
I got that and I haven't played it yet.
I would be interested in where you fall on that, because that's one that I really enjoyed too. And it is a unique, there's a lot of different things are going on in that one. They have some ideas. So I'd be interested to see what you think of that one, because I'm extremely high on that game as well.
Yeah, like I said, I picked up a cheap copy of that, so that's just been kind of in the backlog, and I've been wanting to check it out. But yeah, I thought about that too, because I knew that Lies of P was pretty parry heavy as well, and I'm like, because there was that one, that Team Ninja game, that parry.
Neo?
Not Neo, the other one that came out after.
Oh, Black.
I liked Neo quite a bit. The fuck was, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, because that parry system was weird.
That game, I did not. I felt very similarly about that. Not because there was like one mechanic that was pissing me off. I just felt like the parrying was not on the level that it needed to be.
I wish I could remember the name of that, but that one was tough. That one was difficult. But you did. I mean, Black Myth had parrying.
Yeah, so, but it's not like required.
To the game.
Black Myth is pretty flexible in the way that you kind of approach it.
For sure.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm really glad that you like it. That's sweet. And like, I obviously am on the opposite side of the spectrum. I mean, it seems like a lot more people like this than dislike it. And I really want to like it. I really like lots about it, just from the aesthetics, and the story was really cool at the beginning of it. All of that worked for me. It just fell short for the gameplay, in my opinion. So
yeah, there are some things that are a little annoying at first. What fast travel is frustrating at first, but that resolves itself, and then it's great in a way that it's totally fine. So you kind of sometimes these games you want 100% areas, and really the way to play it is just to play the game and get about 8 hours in, and then it just gets easier to move around and all that. And then if you want to go do your cleanup, that's the way to do it, because this is not like Bo, where Bo had frustrating spots that had a lot of platforming to then, like, depending where you were fast traveling to, it was kind of a pain in the ass to move around the world.
That game was fucking brutal with the platforming. Yeah, it was very challenging.
Like, this game is not nearly as hard on platforming. And then also, like, you get just the ability, and with the shortcuts, the cleanup is pretty easy. Last time when I finished it the first time, it was like at 95% was my completion. Like, I'm right there. I've done everything. The only thing that's left is some chests that I don't really care to go get, because there's no items in them. Yeah. So I don't know that I will even bother with it getting a complete 100%, but all the side quests and everything is done.
So does the platforming, because in the early bits of the game that I played, the platforming seemed all right. The character E, or whatever his name is like kind of slow-ish, and so I never really had any frustration with the platforming, but I was like, thinking down the line, I was like, I'm sure they're going to layer on more mechanics
so
to make the platforming a little bit more dynamic.
For sure. You get an ability, the left button does this little spin, and it uses two different things. One, bosses get an attack where they have a green outline, and then you need to basically jump on their head with a left spin. And that's going to really stagger them pretty well.
Yeah, they roll that out. Like,
you do have that. Yeah. Okay, so that's one. That is, there's also buttons and things that you use platforming with that spin throughout the game. And then you end up with a double jump. And then you have kind of like a grapple thing. So it's not that the platforming, like, it's all fine. I don't think it's the highlight of the game, and I don't think it's the hardest thing. That doesn't mean there weren't areas that took me 6 times, maybe 10 times, because it's like, oh fuck, this is kind of hard. But when I look back at the game, I'm certainly not going to be talking about the platforming as the high point for where I ended up on this thing. But there are some pretty tough ones. I think a lot of it is quite good. I was a little frustrated when you finish the game with the normal ending, it reverts you back to a point, like, because you can keep playing. That's how these work. If you want 100% it, it reverts you back to a point before you start this last encounter, but not before the last boss. And it's like 20 minutes. So it's like I can go clean everything up, but then I got to go do this not last boss area for 20 minutes. And I did it, but that was a frustrating decision there, because I was like, man, like this kind of, I don't want to fucking do that thing again. Like that wasn't particularly compelling. It was just kind of an escape thing. And that was a little frustrating, where most don't do that. And I kind of get, because a lot of the map gets fucked up after this thing, so it gets blocked off, but they should have done something different, because one, the fucking the only reason you want to reload the save is to fucking do the final ending and clean up. Just remove all the bullshit. Like, no one fucking cares. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I mean, that's frustrating. I mean, I don't want to play this game again. So, like, I get it from that perspective, for sure.
They have already added, because this came out earlier this year. There is some updates, and once you've finished the game, you can go fight any boss you want. I think it's a great feature. And
like boss rush, or
no, it's just you can just go fight the bosses.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's one of the things Sekiro ended up adding it, and I think every Souls game should have it. Like, you have these awesome boss fights in these huge games, and it's the type of thing where it's like, yeah, I absolutely want to go fucking fight random Millennia. I don't want to replay all of Elden Ring to do it. They need to add it. They did it in Sekiro, and I think it needs to be standard. You finish the game and it pops like, here's the bosses you fought or something. So you can go and redo those. Like, Sekiro has some great bosses, and to be able to go back and fight those was a lot of fun when they had that update.
Speaking of Millennia, I was on a plane yesterday, and
someone was fighting her on a Steam Deck.
No, there was a dude that had a fucking Millennia tattooed on his neck. Like, he stood up, he was like sitting a couple of seats in front of me, and he stood up to do something, go to the bathroom or something like that. And you just could see her head on his neck. And I like did a double take. I was like, is that fucking Millennia on that dude's neck? And then like he was all tatted up. Just like sleeves were tattoos of video game characters. But I was like, that's a bold choice.
That's fucking,
you gotta really love Millennia.
Man.
Fucking got let me solar her like tattooed on him as somewhere. Just a dude with like a jar on his head.
Have you read any of the articles? The kids that were named Khaleesi are starting to get old, and they're all getting old. They're like, you named me after the baddie, and it's like, well, she wasn't bad when we named you. It's fucking funny shit.
Yeah, like I get it to a certain extent. I don't really like the name
Khaleesi. No,
yeah, but I get it because she's like a powerful like female character.
Yeah, that fucking,
she's a straight badass.
That fucking goes south. Okay, a couple things. So, Overwatch 2, which I think is fair to say is not in a good spot. We haven't played it for quite some time, but they announced Overwatch Classic. And I had heard about it. It'd been out for a while. Unfortunately, I didn't think about it. And then I reached out and I was like, well, let's fucking play some Overwatch. No, that's not what happened. We were fucking playing.
We're playing fucking high elo fucking Call of Duty, and we're getting our shit kicked.
You're right. I sent you a message. I think it was on Friday, and I was like, let's play some fucking games. And we just went and played Call of Duty, got our ass completely murdered, and then literally I went and downloaded Overwatch 2 because I was like, should we go play Classic? And then got it downloaded, and we went and played it, and proceeded to just kick the shit out of all. Like, we won the vast majority of our games.
I think we lost like 2 maybe.
We were back to our old roots because, I mean, obviously, if you have listened to this podcast, Jared and I have a lot of history with Overwatch, but we also have a pretty good combo system with Mei and OG Roadhog, where it just kind of works. Like the whole idea that I can slow someone down and eventually freeze them, and he can hook them. It's extraordinarily effective. You made a comment while we were playing. You're just like, Mei and Roadhog should be the friends. They like sync up. This is great.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I'm a little sad about the whole experience because we had, or at least I had a fucking great time. I was like, this is so fun. Doesn't mean there's not problems. There are plenty of problems with original Overwatch, but God, the magic is there. And that shit was a really good time. and it helped that we just stomped people. Like no one, I assume these people just hadn't played original Overwatch or something, and they didn't know what they were in for.
Yeah, there were people. We were winning quite a few matches, and there were people like in fucking chat being like, "I hate this mode so much." It's like that feels good.
Yeah, it's the best mode.
Welcome to hell, motherfucker. Just super nostalgic. Obviously, we put a lot of time into OG Overwatch back in 2016. And yes, there are massive problems with it. And, even though I am strongly a proponent of hook and one-shotting with Roadhog, and I know a lot of people are not a fan of that, I will say that there is a lot of nerfs that need to be made to OG Roadhog. Not the hook and one shot, but he is a force to be fucking reckoned with in the baseline game. So
he's too hard to kill.
Yeah,
basically he's too hard to kill, and then the combo of what that hook can do if you are good with it is
it's
really,
a problem.
Really something. I mainly just played Mei the entire evening because it was great. Because Overwatch 2 has changed her, and I didn't realize I disliked it as much as I did, but she does not fully freeze people with her left click anymore. And she does in the original one, and that was a game changer. Like, I can go one-on-one with the Roadhog in original Overwatch. It's fucking great. It's this frustrating game where you're alternating your stuff. And
you just can't get hooked because you're dead if you get hooked.
Yep, if they're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, unless I can get my ice block off, it's like this tiny window. If they're a second late, then I can get into it. But it was really good, and it makes me sad a little bit because it made me want to play Overwatch 2. So like that's kind of successful in that I was like, well, I really like this style of game, and this one works really well. But it made me sad that it's like it's just not the same, and they really, I hope they need to come up with a way to just re-energize it and reintroduce that game. But I don't know that it's ever going to happen.
Easier said than done, man. Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. I think that, it's so difficult because it's like, it's not as simple as just making the teams larger and giving us 2 tanks again. It's not that simple because people are looking at this experience through rose-colored glasses where it's like, oh, we don't like Overwatch 2 and the direction that they took the game in. But like, everybody that played a lot of Overwatch, especially towards the end, they were bitching about the comps that were present there, and it wasn't a good time.
Yeah, there were problems. There's a reason that they said that they went to 5.
Right.
Now, they've already said they're going back to 6. Like that's out. They're working on that.
Yeah, it's like testing it out.
So like I was not a huge I was not like mad about going to 5. I didn't mind that part of the change. I think some people disagree quite a bit. I don't play a lot of tanks either though. So maybe it doesn't affect me as much, but
that's all. I mean, pretty much all I play is tank. And so it requires you to, and it is largely dependent on the character you're playing as well, because like certain characters do a lot better in my opinion, with the singular tank, like Zarya, for instance, who was basically my main in Overwatch 2, just because they tweaked her a little bit and she, being the focal point of all the damage if you're good with your bubbles, she's fucking nasty to deal with. If you're charged up, you're just mowing through people. But then there are characters like Roadhog is a great example. Like anybody that picks Roadhog in the Overwatch 2 format, you're like, oh no, because he just doesn't have any utility with all the changes that they made to really be an effective tank, other than like soaking up damage.
But he has a solo tank.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like he doesn't have the enough utility, and his health pool is smaller, so it's just like you're left with like kind of a wasted pick, right? It's a problem.
It's almost like make him DPS. You got to drastically change some things on him, but like if that's his kit, then he should probably be in some form DPS.
Yeah, they reworked him again, so he doesn't have a right click, so he doesn't have like an at distance shot anymore. Which is like, what the fuck is this? Like this, you're making it even worse. You know what I mean?
No right click. It just says nothing.
Well, I don't remember what he has, but he does not have a long range shot anymore. It's only close range.
Interesting.
There's something that they switched with the right click, but I can't quite remember. The only time that I played him was when we were like queuing up for Classic, and there was like a brief minute where we were like like put into training mode, and it was like current Roadhog.
Oh,
and I was like, what is this? What's going on? But it's a very difficult thing to balance. And to your point, I don't know if they can do it. I really don't. I mean, it would be nice to say like, oh, they've got this thing in a really good spot, and then we go back to it and we kind of recapture some of the glory days that we had with that game, because it's so fucking fun. But the problem is that it is so fucking fun, and people love it so much that, when they're making bad decisions, it's just a hard thing to balance. And the more characters you roll out, that's a thing it
just gets harder. And
the
harder.
classic doesn't have any of the DLC characters, obviously. So it's like the baseline characters that came out at launch. And so it's just a nightmare to balance that.
And yeah, I don't know what they're supposed to do. The broader point is that Overwatch feels good. Like, to play that game, it really, you're just like, man, even the original, the whole thing just worked.
Even Overwatch 2 feels good.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, you can jump in right now and it functions. The feedback you get, like the awareness of what's going on, and maybe that's just from all the time I've played it too, but like when I'm in a match, I'm just like, I know exactly what's happening. I know what that person is just cast across the board, and there's 10 people or 12 people. And which leads me to what we did last night, which is played Marvel Rivals, which is Overwatch with the Marvel IP. Like, they're not pretending. They, not only that, but they've clearly modeled, or at least with the skills, a lot of these characters. Like, you have your Hanzo, you have your Widowmaker, like they are there, and which I can understand why you would make those decisions. And then put the Marvel skin on it, because that's going to get you an extra few million people that will play your game. But this is a third-person game. Right out of the gate, I was kind of say, like, I don't have a huge attachment to Marvel IPs. Like, I like it. It's fine. But I'm not, like, the guy that's just, like, over the moon, so stoked that I get to go play as Iron Man. Like, it's fine. Like, whatever. I'm trying to figure out what it is about this game that I we'll just go ahead and say, like, despise, but something about it, and I don't know if it's the third person that makes me feel a little bit of a disconnect in the combat, but something about it doesn't feel tight or right. Like, I've been playing a lot of Black Widow. I'm not a sniper. Like, I never am a sniper. And I've been playing Black Widow and doing pretty well, like doing just fine, but it feels loose. Like, it feels kind of sloppy, and I don't like the feedback I get when I land something across the board. As I was playing with different characters, I never felt like, oh, I hit this. I was like, no, I used my shift and some shit happened over there. And I don't know, like, it's fine. Like, a lot of people are playing it. It's free to play, but I will be blown away if this thing really has legs. Now, it's got the Marvel license, and it's got a ton of characters. Like, they do have a big roster right out of the gate. So I could see maybe, but it's such a hard sell to me. I will play Overwatch 2 in its current form 99 times out of 100 over this thing. I can't do it. I can't get on board with this thing.
I totally agree with you. It does not feel good in its current state, in my opinion. That being said, I mean, they didn't play every single character, and they do deserve credit for rolling out a massive roster. I don't know how many are in the game at launch, but it is
almost too many, except when you are Marvel. You don't get to just show up with 10, because probably, it just doesn't fly. They probably recognize that.
Right.
But if you were to draw it up, you would have held a lot of these characters back so that you could have a lot of things coming out. But if it makes money, maybe presumably, I mean, they have an unlimited pool, right?
Yeah.
There's
also see. Like, not a lot of competition in this genre right now.
Is there any game that has ever been an Overwatch clone?
Well, there's plenty, but ones that haven't succeeded and stayed long.
Are there plenty?
Yeah,
that push a payload that like.
Yeah, like Exoprimal is a good example of that. That was that dynasty.
Play that.
Well, you didn't play it. I played it, and it was doing those types of things.
But you're the only one that played it.
I'm not the only one that played it. Some people liked it. But yeah, there are a handful of examples. But my point of bringing this up is that, like, there's none that have succeeded and stayed present, right? So they do have that going for them, where it's like, one, you've got the Marvel IP, which is wildly popular, and two, there just isn't really a lot of competition in this space right now. The problem is the game doesn't feel good to play, and I think that that's the biggest problem. And some people might disagree with us there. I just did not get good feelings from this game. Like, I don't know if it's the third person mode. Like, I actually like, and it makes sense that it's third person, especially with the IP being what it is, because I think it would feel like, oh, here's Magneto's hands. That's all I can see. I think that'd be a problem.
I usually like third person, and I've definitely in the past been like, I wish Overwatch was third person. And now that I've played this, I'm just like, well, I don't know what I wish anymore, because this does not do it for me.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that Overwatch would be different, but something about it, I don't like it. I didn't like how it felt.
Yeah. So again, like third person shooters on mouse and keyboard usually feel really good, and I like them. But yeah, I think it's more that this is just not tight enough. This is a Chinese developer. It's NetEase, I believe, that did this.
Yes, it is.
And yeah, just like shooting your guns and like, you know, utilizing your abilities and things like that. It just all feels kind of not tight enough to really grab me for a long period of time. Something that I found that was really frustrating is like the amount of like shot leading that you have to do here, where there were like,
it's slow and floaty.
Yeah, if there's like an enemy like strafing, you know, like you can't just set your crosshairs on the enemy if they're strafing. You have to lead them, which is not necessarily the worst thing in the world.
What's that word for, like, Soldier 76 doesn't have, when you click the button, the bullet appears. There's a word for that.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Why can't I remember? I know what you're talking about.
A lot or all the characters in Marvel Rivals are not like that. There aren't really a lot of those. So like your fair killers are always the ones that had that 0. Like the second you clicked it, it was there.
Yeah. It just doesn't feel great. And now, you know, there was like a couple of matches that we played last night where I was like, okay, all right. I was playing Rocket Raccoon, who they like kind of show you the complexity of the characters, like how hard it is to play them. And he's like a 1-star. He's like the easiest level. And his kit is like decently fun. But yeah, it didn't feel like there was a lot of synergy as well, which is a big part of like some of the Overwatch stuff.
And we could be way wrong, because there is a team up ability.
True. Which is a cool idea
that we certainly did not fully engage with. That from my experience playing the game, I don't believe anyone is fully engaging with it. It came out yesterday, so yeah. I get it, but it seems like there is like you could ride. I was Groot. You got on my shoulders. I don't know how the fuck you got on my shoulders, but you're on my shoulders for a while.
I just hit C.
I don't know why you would want to be on my shoulders, but maybe you can do a different attack from up there or something. Because it seems like you're just up there waiting to get sniped.
Yeah, you look at the hero details, and then like in the bottom of the screen, it'll be like team abilities, and it will show you the characters that you have team abilities with, and every character has like 3 or 4 of them, which is a cool idea. And then like in theory you're like, okay, yeah, like this is going to really drive the comps for, you know, high level play in this game. But it just didn't come out in the pubs we were playing last night. It just felt like just a free for all crazy, and it just didn't feel like Overwatch does. And like this thing is just exactly like Overwatch. Like the aesthetic is like Overwatch. I think the character design in this game is really good. It looks nice. Yeah. But the maps, it's just like, oh, we're playing Hanamura, but it's not Hanamura.
Oh, absolutely. They are borderline copy paste.
Yeah, and it's also like the same game modes. Like it's push a payload, it's capture a point. You know, the same shit that you're going to see in Overwatch. I just did not have a good time with it. And so I don't know. I mean, maybe down the line, if they're going to be like, oh, we polished some of this stuff and made it a little bit better. Maybe down the line, but like this one has got a better chance of succeeding than maybe any of these other clones because of the Marvel IP.
Absolutely. I wonder, you know, we only played the one evening. I did play a decent amount, and I played a little bit before we played too. And I don't know if that would change with knowledge, but you know, there's no like the fear of a certain character's ultimate, which is a constant thing in the back of your head as an experienced Overwatch player. You're like, that Reaper hasn't gone off. He hasn't gone off. Where's he at? And there's not that here, but we also maybe don't know the characters enough. But in my own experience, I never found an ultimate that even necessarily had that threat level or had that excitement level. I never
Besides
really
Jeff the Shark. Jeff the Sharks was really good.
Well, that's a great character, and he should come to Overwatch. He's a fantastic character. But I had a hard time with it. I was like, none of them feel that good on this ultimate. Like Black Widow's is like you shoot a bomb and it poisons people around them, and it's just not ultimate level.
Yeah.
Like I want it to be a threat. And
Rocket Raccoons is Arissa's ultimate, where he just throws something that like amplifies damage for everybody.
Yeah, I think that when you're doing these abilities, it's hard because it's probably a hard thing to balance, like the type of thing where a diva can team wipe with her bomb. Like that's a tough thing to bring into your game. I think it needs to be in your game. It needs to be in the game, and that you need to have to defend against it and understand that it's coming. And I haven't seen it here. I don't know that I ever will. I uninstalled. I don't know that I will touch it. I'm
definitely am not gonna drive home after this and get on and play. But yeah, maybe if down the line they're like, look, we're like maybe 6 months to a year into it, and it's like, we've added all these characters, and they've really ironed out some of the issues that it had like at the beginning, and now this is like a compelling experience. Maybe it's not there yet.
You need info down the line for sure. Like even Overwatch didn't even have ranked when it launched, right? So
yeah.
When you go back, we were just being dumbasses before. So we'll see where this game is in 3 months and see if it's got anything left.
Yeah, I was poking around in the menus because we had, like always, issues with our chat setup in Discord. I don't know what the fuck's going on with that. It's so frustrating.
I'm pretty sure that was a Discord fucking problem.
Seemed like it. But they've got like a league that's spinning up.
Interesting.
And all of that.
Okay.
So they're really going in on it. This takes me into the game that I actually want to get my hands on, which I know I could if I and I believe somebody in our Discord had keys for it, but Deadlock.
Yep.
I really want to mess around with that. I know that game is like not out, but is out, and like it's got a huge concurrent player count right now. Yeah. But like you got to think that they're going to release that fully this coming year, I would guess.
I was supposed to get a key for that because the person in our Discord said that I was going to get one, but I never saw it. I should go search. Maybe I missed the email.
But I really want to mess around with that thing because people are very high on that. And Valve.
That's a pretty good
Valve.
As long as it's not the third iteration of a game, it's fine.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. But there's one thing that I do hate about it, and it's this like pseudo, it's not released, but it's basically released.
Sure.
And I think that is going to cause a lot of problems because however long they're doing this, it doesn't seem like they're revoking access to the game. So it's just going to be like, a handful of people are playing. Exactly. And then we get in like when it actually comes to 1.0 and it's really, and we're just going to get stomped. And that doesn't feel good.
I hadn't really thought about that. That makes sense. But yeah, we should maybe look into it. I think that's about everything unless you got anything else to throw on the top of this.
Mm-mm.
All right. Oh, I already forgot the episode. 146. That's going to do it, guys. Thanks for listening. You should probably go and join the Discord. There should be a link in the show notes if you're listening to it in audio form. And then in our profile on YouTube, we are a video podcast. There should be another link to the Discord. That's going to do it. Take it easy, guys.